If you had to travel to another state to get an abortion, it's not the worst thing in the world. Hopefully this is a very rare occurrence in your life. Once in your life, maybe you would do it. Buying a bus ticket to go somewhere to get it is not the worst thing in the world. If somebody needs one, if they live in Arizona, it just means they'll have to go to the neighboring state. 154,000 people did that last year. It's not an unreasonable position that Trump had.
That was Fox News analyst Mark Simone, whose shaggy head seems to indicate he finds simple things like haircuts pretty inconvenient. But forcing women to spend time and money to travel out of state for reproductive health care? Nah, not inconvenient at all. These women really need to cut their whining. Simone and his co-panelists, Larry Kudlow and Joe Concha, we're basically reacting to the story we covered recently, yesterday, the Arizona Supreme Court's decision that allows the state to revive a law banning abortion that dates back to 1864. The law predating Arizona's statehood provides no exceptions for rape or incest and allows abortions only if the mother's life is in jeopardy. Arizona's highest court suggested doctors can be prosecuted under the 1864 law, though the opinion written by the court's majority didn't explicitly say that. The 4-2 decision did explicitly say that physicians are now on notice that all abortions, except those necessary to save a woman's life, are illegal. Keep in mind that even in the case where an abortion is necessary to save a mother's life, anti-abortion laws like these are so extreme that they have a chilling effect on doctors. They're so afraid of being prosecuted that they might not be willing to risk performing an abortion if they know that religious zealots might pursue criminal charges against them, even in cases where the pregnancy puts the mother's life at risk. Now, the law orders prosecution for a person who provides, supplies, or administers to a pregnant woman or procures such woman to take any medicine, drugs, or substance, or uses or employs any instrument or other means whatever, with intent thereby to procure the miscarriage of such woman, unless it is necessary to save her life. A lot of clunky language there, but you get the point. Arizona's Attorney General, Kris Mayes, has tried to provide assurances to women and doctors, but that likely won't be enough.
Arizona's Democratic Attorney General made this promise.
As long as I am Attorney General of the state of Arizona, no woman or doctor will be prosecuted under this draconian law.
But that may not be enough to convince physicians.
So right now, I think folks are huddling with their own legal counsel to make some determinations about the type of risk they're facing.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
The Arizona Supreme Court said enforcement of the law will not begin for at least 2 weeks because they sent the case back to the lower court to hear additional arguments about the law's constitutionality. But after that, the decision is very likely to take effect. If and when it does, it'll force women to travel to other states like California or New Mexico or Colorado to end their pregnancies. That potential reality is bad enough, but Simone's callous argument becomes even more absurd when you consider the absolute assault on abortion rights in the South. So look, take a look at this chart showing abortion restrictions throughout the country. The darker the red, the more extreme the assault on reproductive rights. The burgundy colored states have full abortion bans. Arizona will join those states soon, and Florida will match Georgia and South Carolina after their recently okayed 6-week abortion ban goes into effect. So where exactly does Simone propose women in Alabama or Louisiana or Georgia go? He's got strong thoughts on what is and isn't convenient. So which state is convenient for women to travel to, Simone? Having to travel to obtain healthcare, reproductive healthcare, will obviously impact poor women the most, who might not be able to pay for the transportation or take the time off to schlep thousands of miles away. The Federal Reserve reports that nearly half of Americans can't even afford a $400 emergency. But traveling out of state for healthcare is convenient. In addition to the cost of the abortion itself, which does tend to cost almost $600 for the majority of self-pay first trimester abortions, the Brigid Alliance, which provides logistical support for people seeking abortion care, estimates that the average cost of traveling for care has increased 41% since the first half of 2022, when it was just over $1,000. The average spend for patients that need to fly just jumped 17% to $994, while a hotel stay, usually 3 nights, is up 29% to $919, according to the group. Though inflation accounts for some of the increase, state by state abortion bans mean people live an average of 275 miles further from a clinic than they did just a year ago, according to Caitlin Myers, a researcher at Middlebury's College. In Texas, the average drive to a clinic increased to 499 miles in March from 43 miles just a year earlier, adding up to $131 extra in gas for a round trip. That's a major obstacle for the approximately 50% of women ending a pregnancy who live at or below the poverty line, which is why draconian laws like Arizona's are a huge political liability for Republicans. Make no mistake about it. That's why you're seeing people like Trump and Carrie Lake kind of back off the abortion talk, really soften their message when it comes to abortion bans. Look, we saw how it played out in the midterms. But Simone says that shouldn't apply to Trump at all. He argues that the former president is the real pro-choice candidate. How? Because he just wants states to decide whether or not women have reproductive rights. I guess that's freedom? I guess that's choice? Let's hear his case.
This will dominate the news for days because they think it'll hurt Donald Trump.
Yeah.
This issue does not hurt Donald Trump. He's not against abortion. That makes him the pro-choice candidate. Leave it up to the states. Let them choose, let them do what they want.
This is tricky business. How does this play out?
It hurts Trump for a few days, and then people start to realize this is not the worst thing in the world.
He may come out. He'll come out against us. Oh no, maybe he won't. But remember, his point was the legislature, Mark. He didn't mention the courts. So this is tricky. State Supreme Court, does that qualify as a state decision?
Yeah, that's what it is to be pro-choice.
Yeah.
The states can decide.
He's making this will of the people argument to twist the reality of how authoritarian these abortion bans really are, and honestly, how the voters feel about them. Consider how Arizonans, for instance, are feeling about the reimplementation of a centuries-old law. Only 7% of Arizona voters said they supported an outright abortion ban with no exceptions, according to a poll conducted last month by YouGov and Samara Klar, a political science professor at the University of Arizona. Supporters of an effort to amend the state's constitution to include abortion rights have gathered enough signatures to basically include that initiative on the November ballot. And that's really good news because the actual voters of Arizona will get to weigh in soon. This is obviously sure to galvanize Arizonans and voters across the country to head to the polls, and that's also good news. The revival of the 1864 law is such bad news for Republicans that Fox contributor Byron York claimed that it's part of this like scripted plan to hurt Trump and the GOP. It's ridiculous.
And it seems like politically harmful to Republicans kind of across the board.
Almost seems scripted. Trump comes out yesterday, makes this big statement about leaving abortion to the states. He's really trying to create a tent that enough Republicans can stand under to elect him in November. So he does that yesterday. Today, Arizona comes out after the Biden campaign jumps all over Trump and said states are going to do radical things and Trump is going to be at fault. And then they do this with this 1864 law. It absolutely seems scripted, and Trump is going to get stuck with this time after time after time throughout this campaign.
I mean, be careful what you wish for, right? I've been getting that comment a lot lately. And yeah, it stings when some of the policies that you thought you wanted ended up actually being not so great. But now all of a sudden you have Republicans trying to back away from something that they've been advocating for literally 50 years. The reversal of Roe and the pursuit of abortion bans has been a rallying cry for the Republican Party for decades. And now all of a sudden, once they decide, oh wow, maybe we should listen to the voters, and it turns out that they don't want to completely ban abortions, all of a sudden they want to back off of it and pretend like they weren't the ones advocating for the bans for decades. Look, what's hurting Trump and the Republicans at large is arguments from people like Ben Shapiro, who in the wake of Arizona's decision told women to just not worry about the ruling because abortion is wrong.
Arizona women should never have to fear the next court decision.
Yeah, first of all, you shouldn't have to fear a court decision because you shouldn't go get an abortion. Just as a moral matter, you should not pursue abortion and believe that the court is the imposition to you, because abortion is immoral and wrong and sinful.
Keep making those arguments, Ben. You're doing the Democrats a huge favor. But the American people are not even remotely on Shapiro's side. Overall, about 2/3 of Americans say abortion should generally be legal. Only about 1 in 10 say it should always be illegal. Just 1 in 10. So I appreciate Ben Shapiro sharing his religious morality, his personal religious morality with the American people. It's nice that he has that opinion. It's nice that he has that interpretation of religious morality, but we live in a pluralistic society where his version of religious morality does not necessarily apply to every single American. And so while it's important to maintain and protect religious freedom in this country, and I say that as someone who's not religious, as someone who identifies as an atheist, I still believe protecting religious liberty is important. But that also means protecting the freedom of those who choose not to dictate their lives based on a religious, text or religious belief. And so if he believes that a zygote is the exact same thing as a living, breathing, viable human being outside the womb, he's free to believe that. It's just not true. And to force that ideology onto every single person in the country is absolutely absurd. We either live in a secular liberal democracy or we don't. I, for one, like the secular liberal democracy we live in. I'd like to maintain that. And so having reasonable laws on the books that allow for women to practice their reproductive rights is incredibly important. And obviously there's a line. I think Roe v. Wade got it right. I think that having undue burdens implemented before fetal viability is a huge problem, and it actually causes far more damage than anything that the GOP claims is being caused by legalizing abortion rights. So we'll see how it plays out electorally. But one final thing I'll say about this story is, I hate that this has become a political tool by both parties. I mean, it's a rallying cry for Republicans, or it had been a rallying cry until Republicans realized that, it turns out our voters actually don't want to completely ban abortions. But on the Democratic side, you don't think Biden is super excited about this? This is a huge win for Biden. This is something that Biden is planning on campaigning on to defeat Donald Trump in the general election. It's just infuriating when you consider the fact that the party didn't fight as hard when it came to protecting reproductive rights for women on a federal level. When Obama had that, super majority in his first term, he literally said that, he's backing off of codifying abortion rights because it's just not a priority right now. That's what he said while they had a super majority. And then later, after we got word that the Supreme Court was gonna reverse Roe v. Wade, you have the Democratic Party fighting tooth and nail to re-elect Henry Cuellar in Texas, a Democratic congressman, yes, but one who does not believe in protecting reproductive rights for women. I mean, I guess the Democratic Party had to do it. They had to endorse the guy. They had to really fight to ensure that he would win re-election, right? There was no other option. Otherwise, a Republican would have won. Except no, he was being primaried by a progressive who wanted to maintain and protect reproductive rights in America. The Democratic Party fought hard to defeat her so they can reelect the anti-abortion Henry Cuellar in Texas. That's what happened. So please spare me the nonsense about how Democrats are so much better on this issue. Sure, rhetorically, they certainly are. On a state level, you do see them fighting to maintain reproductive rights. I will definitely give them credit for that. On a federal level, outside of fundraising, what the hell has Biden done to protect reproductive rights in America? Other than fear-mongering in every general election about how you must elect the Democrat because the Republican is going to nominate conservative Supreme Court justices who are gonna dismantle our reproductive rights, what have Democrats done to protect our reproductive rights on a federal level? Really ask yourself that. So yes, Democrats on a local level, they get some cookies. They've done some good things and they've maintained reproductive rights for women in blue states. On a federal level though, all these goons running around fundraising off of the pain and suffering of women in red states, I find it gross. Put some action behind the rhetoric and do something. So there you have it, a lot of heat for both sides, but obviously Republicans are the ones who got exactly what they've been fighting for. And so I love seeing them now scramble to try to back away from the thing that they've had as part of their rallying cry, part of their campaigns for so many decades now. Again, lives are on the line. I think the issue of abortion is way more nuanced and complicated than people realize. People think that abortion is just about terminating a pregnancy. It has nothing to do with the health of the mother. It has nothing to do with the complications that might arise with the fetus and developmental issues it may have. It's so much more complicated than people realize. And honestly, I'm really tired of hearing from a bunch of dudes who don't even know about how a woman's anatomy works, opine on this nuanced, difficult, and intimate issue.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.